start with a roll call.
Chairman Morris,
Here.
Commissioner Blue,
Present.
Commissioner Cotton,
Here.
Commissioner Hesner, Commissioner Heidner,
Here.
Commissioner Mulcrone,
Here.
Commissioner Gorog.
Yes. Here. Not paying attention.
Answer the right question. Okay, this evening we have a public hearing, case 1501, being a petition with respect to the Cook Memorial Library District, 701 Aspen Drive, to amend the existing special use permit for the Aspen Drive Library PUD to allow placement of a parking lot and its related improvements on Lot 2 of the Cook Memorial subdivision. By way of explanation, the subject property, commonly known as Lot 2 in the Cook Memorial Public Library PUD, is zoned Office Research and Development and is located at 701 Aspen Drive, Vernon Hills, Illinois. So who's going to speak or give any testimony on behalf of this petition this evening? Okay, could you step up? Not going to join them on this one? You're just here for, you're good? You're observed, okay. Okay, could you first state your name for us, please?
I'm Robert Judge from the Hesner Corporation.
Okay, if you raise your right hand and swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this commission of the Village of Vernon Hills shall be the truth.
Yes.
Okay, as they say, you are on.
Okay. Once again, my name is Robert Judge from the Hesner Corporation, and we, as the Hesner Corporation, we are the design firm representing the Cook Memorial Public Library. With me today is David Archer and Wendy Veith from the Cook Memorial Public Library, and Kurt Hesner from the Hesner Corporation. Back in 2014, September 2014, a community survey was brought out by the public library. And in that survey from the community, there was strong criticism about lack of parking throughout the facility. And in response to that lack of parking, the first phase of the library's strategic planning will be presented tonight. So on this first slide, you could see the overall aerial of the neighborhood. You have the public library right here. You have a strip center to the north. You have Victory Center to the east. You have the Sullivan Center to the south. And then you have the townhouses to the west. And then, of course, here is the lot that we will be referring to tonight as Lot 2, which is where the proposed parking will go. Here's just a closer view of the three sites involved in this. We have site number, or lot number 1, which is composed of the library and the parking. We have lot number 2, which the proposed library will, or the proposed parking for the library will be. And then we have lot number 3 up in the corner, which is the entrance into that Strips shopping center to the north. Here is the site plan for this project. The goal of this site plan was to bring the parking up to what would be the current code for this zone. We are following the current drive aisles of the existing north parking up here. So we have this first aisle and the second aisle. There has been, one of the big changes is that we are widening the entry drive into this. So our curb cut is now getting bigger. The reason for that is in future planning, the goal is that the parking can expand more over to the east. And then that would allow this widened drive aisle to line up with this drive aisle over into this new future phased parking. That would also allow for 3 different lanes entering and exiting the site, which would hopefully help with any congestion that could come throughout the day. Our landscaping is going to follow the same landscaping that is currently there to the north. Its goal is just to create a cohesive landscape look, and from Aspen Drive, shade as much of the parking lot as possible. And another factor is that there exists the library sign over to the southwest, And because of this new curb cut, we will be relocating, we're proposing to relocate the sign to the north on the other side of the drive aisle, which is right here. This is the current location for the sign. You could see it's in the southwest corner. Library is up here. And then our proposal is to move it right across the street, somewhere in this landscape berm. And it'll be roughly in this position. This current position will be determined by the village and the library, but right now it is not currently set in stone in terms of the exact dimensions. And then here's just another view of how the relocated sign will be located on the other side. And so hopefully it'll help with a little visibility when you're actually entering into the library heading south onto Aspen. And that concludes the presentation. And if there are any questions, the four of us are here to answer any of those.
Anything, Joe?
I would just add some items that are listed in the report. One of the things that was initially considered when this entire subdivision was developed was the future use of Lot 2. The village does own Lot 2. It will maintain ownership whether the parking lot is installed or not. Part of the intent of the Lot 2 had always been for use for a parking lot. When the Victory Center was initially developed, there was detention that was placed underground their existing parking lot to accommodate not just the Victory Center, but the entire subdivision, including the library, Lot 2, and Lot 2. And so that was something that was factored into consideration, that entire Lot 2 would be developed and be of an impervious surface. So that was something that was considered. Right now, the section of Lot 2 that's being considered is for library use. The village is in ongoing discussions with the library as well as the Park District to discuss the maintenance of the parking lot as well as the future development that would potentially go there. It's probably important to note that any future expansion, whether on the existing library lot or on the Lot 2, would still require an amendment to the PUD to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission. So this is really just really a phase in what I think has been exemplified by a long-term process to expand the services, not just of the library, but also the Park District. With all that being said, the Park District has not yet identified exactly what their expansion needs are, and they're still moving forward on their own time frame. And so, out of deference to the library district, who does have a clear vision for what they want to do in terms of expansion, we wanted to move forward with this, at least as a temporary phase, to move forward with ultimate development of the lot.
Question. Would the new lot also serve as overflow for larger middle school south events?
There's certainly that potential. That would be something that would likely be included into an agreement for the use and maintenance of that lot to ensure that it is something that we can use as a community lot as opposed to just for one particular entity. But at the same time, there's an acknowledgement, obviously, of who's paying for the lot, but also understanding that it's the village's land, so we want to maintain some say as to how it's being operated.
So what is the license agreement that these conditions are subject to?
It's still being negotiated. Nothing's been set in stone. I know we've provided copies of the agreement both to the library and to the Park District, with the Park District just recently providing some comments back. And so it's still an ongoing document, but it's going to cover everything from snow removal to lawn care maintenance for the unasphalted portion of the Lot 2, as well as future maintenance of the parking lot.
For purposes of our approving it and for purposes of the library know what it's doing then, because I just misunderstood what this was when I read it. Do we need to have probably some greater fleshing out of what this approval of this license agreement is if we're making a condition of approval, so they know what they're getting approval on? I guess is 1A, and then 1B is, if it's going to remain as the village's property, is this really the village's petition? Because the village is the owner? And they're not even a tenant? I mean, so for purposes of this, do we really have to not grant this to the library, but grant it to the village?
In terms of 1A, I can answer that one first.
Okay,
This, I would say, is most similar to an REA agreement or a development agreement, similar to how
okay,
certain agreements have been structured with Menards or other developments.
okay.
And then, as it relates to the secondary component, yeah, I think you could make the argument that the village is also a petitioner in this case because of their ownership of the property. We haven't, internally, I don't think we've really discussed the nuances of owning it, but also understanding that there's an entity, in this case the library, who's requesting permission to utilize it. And the,
Okay. But the village is going to keep ownership. We're not going to change the title ownership of of Lot 2. It's going
Correct.
to remain in the village.
correct.
And
It's lot 1, correct?
Or just Lot 2.
Lot 1, the library owns, don't you?
Correct.
Oh, they own it?
Okay, and Lot 3, I'm guessing you own it, or there's huge easements over it of some sort?
I'm unsure.
No, I'm not sure if they do either, but I know it's an access easement basically for that center.
Yeah, because it's got that little curved road.
Yeah.
And for purposes of the Lot 2 development, I'm sorry I didn't ask this before, you gave us this picture of future planned expansion of the parking lot.
Yes.
Is there a reason why we don't want to approve it with that expansion and just land bank the parking so it doesn't have to come back even for that? Or do you want it to come back?
I think it's our preference. Well, I should back up. That was never discussed, at least at the village level.
Fair enough. Okay.
Would that expansion of the parking just be if they've expanded the library then?
We're only on the first step. There's a long way to go on the
Yeah.
second part of this, which is going to involve the park district, the village, and the library itself. So all parties are going to be part of that.
Okay, my bigger concern.
But we're not there yet.
Okay, my bigger concern is now that and I just misread it, so I apologize, or I would have asked Joe these questions earlier, is that if you're not a contract purchaser or an owner of Lot 2, if we grant a special use to you rather than to the owner or for this, is it going to be enforceable later? Or are you going to run into problems? Do you need this really to have the village request it, then sign a license agreement and a cross-access so you can use it?
I don't think so. I think at this point, I mean, it's really clear that it's a village's property. I don't think we have to take title to make a variance change on it at this point, or a special use change.
I'm just not sure a third party can do it on someone else's property unless you're a contract purchaser.
I think it's
or a
really up to
tenant.
the village whether we can or we can't.
I don't know off the top of my head. I just misunderstood when I read it today, so I apologize. I mean, I don't want to create other problems for us or for you. So if we approve it this way, I'm asking now for an opinion. Is it going to be okay going forward, or is it going to be subject to challenge? I don't know by whom, but there's always somebody out there that'll challenge something. If a non-tenant, non-contract purchaser, non-owner seeks to change the PUD for property it doesn't own.
But we are eventually going to have a licensing agreement on that property, so aren't we kind of considered the tenant, even though we're making the improvement?
I don't know, to be honest. I haven't thought it through. I don't know. I just want to make sure that it's not subject to challenge later for
Yeah.
on your behalf, because, as you know, my experience primarily on the defense side is that
Yes, I know.
if there's a problem that someone will find, they will find it and then make
Yeah,
a
I
big deal about it.
Yeah, I
And I prefer you don't have that problem. And this might be much ado about nothing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, you can make it a condition of it, you know, I mean, I think at this point, we have obviously nobody here to challenge it.
no, and we don't. I agree.
Could the village lease the property for $1 a year?
That's what they'll do.
Why don't you?
Wait, you can't.
My understanding is, and certainly on the legal end of it, I can't speak for those, but my understanding is that the petitioner has requested the use of the property.
Right.
And in so doing, it requires an amendment to the PUD, which is where they're petitioning an amendment to allow the use of village property. And so doing, while it's utilizing village property, the license agreement is going to be essentially the agreement or the lease in a way of the terms of how that will be, how the property will be
Sure.
utilized.
Yeah, that I agree with. Yeah.
So we could actually, since we make a recommendation, we can put a condition on here that throws it to the board that says, you know, we recommend that you get into some type of legal agreement on the property.
Yes, though
And the village attorney then can review it.
Well, it's either a legal agreement or just have the village.
Right.
City owns it, make the request.
Yes.
and I believe that's what the license agreement is intended for, and perhaps that's not not worded correctly. I was utilizing the exact language that it was being
No,
classified
I
as.
appreciate that.
Real quick, is the library district paying for this, or is it the village?
They're paying for the construction and
Improvement.
So
improvements.
they're just asking to improve it and then use it?
Correct.
You were going to say something. If you first introduce yourself.
Sorry, I'm
Is the
Wendy
rule?
Heath. I'm on the board for the Cook Memorial Public Library District. Thank you for your time tonight. Yeah, I can't remember the agreement that we had when we built the building, and I don't think it's a lease, actually, with Vernon Hills. I don't remember. But this is a little different because it's, I mean, ultimately, long-term, in the meetings that we had, like, for the last year with Park District and the School District, it would be shared parking, and that was the beauty of it, because we could all use it at different times without creating more parking lots. So I don't know, I mean, you guys tell us what's the best way to do it, you know,
Right.
what do you want to call it, or, you know, how we should move ahead. We, you know, we're just in a position where we can pay for it, and we need it for the security of our patrons and just to get us up to speed with.
No, certainly there's no problem with signing effectively an intergovernmental agreement
Right.
for shared use. That's obviously not a problem. My only concern is that who's requesting it?
Right.
And because there's always people that come out of the woodwork and then later question what you did
Right.
or what we did, and I don't want you to have a problem later.
Yeah.
And I typically defend these, I don't bring them, so I'd have to think about it a whole lot more if I did.
Yeah.
So that's my only concern, that the agreement you end up with is one that if somebody challenges, you're not going to get challenged on this kind of thing, because there's always someone willing to do that.
But that agreement is still being negotiated right now.
Okay, but the
So
problem.
you can make it conditional on that agreement.
Yeah, but it's not so much the agreement I'm concerned about, because that, we'd say, is this license agreement. My real concern is, can you, as a third party, request a special use on someone else's property when you don't have an agreement in place yet? I don't know the answer to that.
All I can tell you, Hal, is we
Yeah.
pursued the process the village told us to pursue.
Oh, I'm not saying you did anything wrong, so trust me on that one. We don't have a ordinance book here? No. There used to be. Because doesn't it say who can bring, or make requests for zoning or special use or PUDs? Yeah, I could try to look it up, but okay. Okay, anybody else? After that little side trip?
The original PUD was all 3 lots, is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
Then I have a, I want to go back to some of my original questions. Additional landscape on the south property line within a utility easement. What is that utility easement?
I do not know exactly what that utility easement is specifically
It's a
for.
15-foot utility easement that goes the full length of the south end of the property.
Is there anything in that easement right now?
Not that we know of right now. We think it was put in there for the future.
Right,
If there was
so-
any,
So it's not going to interfere with,
no,
plantings are not going to interfere with what's going down into a sewer drain
no.
or something?
Well, when they come back, they're going to explain the location where they're going to put it, and it would be modified when it be put in.
Okay, anybody else?
Small thing. Has there been any thought in making it one-way traffic around the parking? So like if you come in to the new park, if you come in, you can either go straight to make a left at the second, by the building, or you can go right into the new parking bank and then just have it go all the way around instead of making it two-way traffic for safety reasons?
Ultimately, the choice to do a two-way for all of it was primarily because The parking lot to the north was a two-way, so we wanted to follow that same system, so there wasn't any confusion moving between the two. But then in the future planning where we start to possibly add parking, then once again, it makes it a little easier for us to keep two ways going through each way so that we don't have to modify what this current planning process is. And that was the idea for it.
Because I think, I know I've seen several near misses, you know, when I've been at the library, and it's a little scary sometimes, especially with children on skateboards, and
I could see that, yeah.
so it's something I would prefer to have changed, you know, sooner rather than after a tragedy happens.
A one-way parking lot, we'd end up with less parking there, and there'd be more pavement for less parking. It's just one of the offsets of that. It makes, we'd have to use up more land for the parking. Because they have to put the stalls in on an angle to prevent two-way.
You could indicate one way, and they're still going to go any way they want.
Even if one way were indicated, maybe it would encourage people to go one way without changing the striping.
Even when you have angled parking, unfortunately, people will drive the wrong way and then try and park in an angled spot, and it. Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but yeah.
I'm just
It's
trying
a
to
parking
encourage
lot.
safety rather than.
I would like to echo that comment also, because I much prefer a one-way traffic pattern. It's much safer. And then I had an additional question. Is there a reason that the additional handicap spots, it seems like when you have a handicap spot, you want to be closest to the door. Is there a reason you didn't move two of those spots up to the north side of the entrance?
We could. You know, definitely, there's 3 spots here that can be used, but if you put one handicap stall there, then you're forced to have one that's a non-handicap. So, you know, one can go here for convenience, but then you'll have possibly some confusion where people don't know that they can use that standard one. You know, we could definitely move them, you know, on the other side of the drive aisle. And, you know, that would definitely.
How is if I'm a handicapped person in a wheelchair or something, how do I is the sidewalk all depressed there, or how do I get in?
No, you would come through to near this stall, and then they have a ramp right over
All the
here.
way over there.
Or you could come through here, and then you have a ramp on this side, right in the front door, right by the
Okay, so
front door.
really, I'm out in traffic to come down there if the earlier lots are filled.
I mean, currently, right now, there are 4, the 4 existing handicap stalls are right here. And then in this scheme, in our plan, we have added this 5th one. So these 4 can currently exist, and then we are just grouping this 5th one right next to the 4th one for now. Just so that they're all bunched together.
And my preference is that you reconsider that and actually move some of those closer to the door.
That whole length there?
David Archer, Assistant Director at the Cook Memorial Public Library District. My recollection is that entire length of where the handicap spots are, it is ground level, so that someone in a wheelchair could exit their vehicle and go immediately to the sidewalk to the east. Yes, yeah, because it has a textured.
Yeah, it has the tile the full length.
Right.
See, those are the areas that we haven't really modified at all. We've left them exactly the way they are right now. And when we added we added one onto the end at that point. And we're trying not to make any curb changes, sidewalk changes if we possibly can in those areas. We don't want to go and tear up the perfectly good
Even where the
design.
proposed 5th lot is?
Land unit development.
No, not at this time.
So that would have to be changed.
It would have to be cut out and changed. And we could do that. I don't see that as being a problem. We'd be cutting out the width of space 16 feet to do it. We could do that.
Move that to the north side.
You'd have to do it on that side too then. Either way, you have to do it.
Right. But I'm saying, as long as you're having to do it,
Just going to
why not put it so somebody's closer to the
Okay.
door?
All right.
Unless it jumps to this section. Okay, anybody else? Okay, in light of that discussion, is there anything you want to suggest that we can talk about for a moment in terms of additional conditions? Or do you just want to have them know about these things and think about it? I guess I'm looking at you for this one, Jim, to start with.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Well, I would condition it upon moving one of those handicaps, at least one of the handicap spots to the north side.
If we do that, can we do that as a separate, because you know what, they just want to put a handicap spot with the other ones. I think making them go through all that just to put one on the north side is really not warranted.
Okay, we can look at
No
that, sure.
disrespect.
I'm
I
just
mean, there's-
thinking of what's the purpose of handicap spot
But there's
is.
4 there, they're just going to put a 5th one next to it to meet the legal requirements. You know, as they expand and do other things, then they
Okay.
can move stuff around, so.
Okay.
If we can
look
have
at
that
it
as a
separate.
separate.
Sure. What about the
item.
traffic flow question that we brought up? The one-way versus multi-way, I guess?
I would prefer one way. I think, I don't want to
Separate,
make it.
let's do it separate, please.
Oh, I would say I wouldn't make it a condition. I just wanted it to be heard.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else we want to look at separately?
So that'd be one way within so along the new parking lot,
Both sections.
both?
So you'd come down and go,
So
I get
north,
that
north and south would totally be.
I think the motion should be that they develop a plan for one way. We shouldn't tell them which is the best way for one way, would be
Yeah,
my suggestion if we're going to vote on it.
I don't think I'd change this around that way. I mean, because you want to give people options to go multi-ways. When you start directing people overly of which way they're supposed to go and everything like that, they make mistakes, and that's usually when we have more accidents at this point. So,
I would agree with you, so we'll see what the vote goes, and then it goes to the board and they have the ultimate say.
yeah, because you can make it as a recommendation, but I just don't think it should be done.
Okay.
I think the suggestion is not to make it as part of a condition, but to see if there's a consensus to have the board consider that and the petitioner. Okay. Anything else other than those two particular ones? Okay. If not, as this is a public hearing, and you two are actually part of the public for this, does anybody in the public have any comments they'd like to make with respect to this request by the library district for Lot 2? Okay, seeing no great rush to comment, we can close the public hearing section. Do you want to add anything?
The only other thing I'd like to ask is, actually, at this time, no.
Okay, just remember, we're going to vote in a second.
Yeah,
so- Okay, all right. What we have on this commission, oh, I'm sorry, Jim does remind me, and I even wrote it down. We have the 18.3 responses in our packet which are the particular responses in the village code for applications for special use, and those have been provided, and those are made part of your application and your record here as well. So I should look at my notes. We also, I suppose, just for the record, note that notices were sent out to surrounding property owners, and our packet indicates that no comments were received from anyone that received notices. Okay? Okay. With that, you're asking for a couple things. First is to amend the special use permit for a planned unit development to allow development of a parking lot and related improvements on Lot 2 of the Cook Memorial subdivision, subject to the proposed landscape plan, proposed site plan, and proposed photometric plan, with conditions of final approval of plans by the village engineer and village landscape architect prior to issuance of building permit, approval of a license agreement or any other agreements necessary to accomplish the the planned unit development and special use and the parking lot construction and maintenance between the Village of Vernon Hills, the Vernon Hills Park District, and the Cook Memorial Library District. And lastly, except as noted, compliance with all their ordinances and standards of the village. So we need a second for that.
Second.
Any discussion?
Did you find anything in your little research?
No, so we handle it separately, yeah. Okay, anything else? Any?
Quick question, did you include the school district as part of that?
They
being
were
able
part
to
of,
share.
they were part of initial conversations, though they've since kind of backed out of the conversations that have taken place. That's not to say that they might not end up stepping back into the conversations in terms of use, but to my knowledge, and again, this is just to my knowledge, they have kind of not been party to any conversations as it relates to this agreement.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, we need a roll call vote on that first motion.
Commissioner Blue?
Yes.
Commissioner Cotton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hesner? Commissioner Heidner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mulcrone?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorog?
Yes.
Chairman Morris?
Yes. Okay, secondly, we have a motion to recommend a preliminary and final site and landscaping plan approvals with the same conditions of approval and the same general compliance with the plans that we just indicated. We need a second for that.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? Okay, we need a roll call.
Commissioner Cotton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hesner? Commissioner Heidner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mulcrone?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorog?
Yes.
Chairman Morris?
Yes. Okay. Next is a separate motion. Okay.
You forgot one.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Blue. What happened when I-
He changed up the rotation and
Uh-oh.
skipped one. Yeah.
Okay, next we have a motion to recommend, I guess, approval of an additional condition for both the motion 1 and motion 2, that the handicapped spaces, I guess, after expansion, include a space to the north of the current spaces. That's not really articulate, but I think we know we're
North of
talking.
the entrance.
North of the entrance to the library building. Okay? So we need a second for that.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on that in particular? Okay, we need a roll call on that.
Okay. Commissioner Hesner? Commissioner Heidner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mulcrone?
No.
Commissioner Gorog?
No.
Chairman Morris?
No?
Commissioner Blue?
No.
Commissioner Cotton?
Okay. Next is, it's not a motion to change the conditions, but it's the commission's going to vote on whether the petitioner, in conjunction with the village, should investigate the implementation of a one-way plan of circulation throughout the site, including the expanded parking lot. So we don't really need a second on that, it's just we're going to vote on it, unless you think we do, Joe. Because
I think
it's
we
not
should,
really,
just
okay,
for-
we need a second on that then. Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, we need a roll call on that one.
Commissioner Mulcrone?
No.
Commissioner Gorog?
No.
Chairman Morris?
Yes?
Commissioner Blue?
No.
Commissioner Cotton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hesner? Commissioner Heidner?
Yes.
All right, so that's 3-3.
So you shouldn't ask me to vote. But that's not a condition, it's just to talk about it with the village and each other. Okay, so,
So it'll represent to the board that we have a 3-3 split on that vote?
yes, that's correct. That's right. Okay, anything else you'd like to do this evening? Or have we done enough?
My one other question would be if this is going to go before the board on Tuesday.
It should, yes.
Okay,
Okay,
Thank you very much.
okay,
thank you.
okay. Kurt? We have one real quick thing, then can you hang out for just a second?
Yeah,
Okay.
can I talk to my client? I'll be
Oh,
right
yeah,
back.
of course, yeah. Okay. Next, we have on our agenda, development review. Anything we'd like to discuss there?
Yes, on April 21st, that's a Tuesday, the village board will be meeting on our committee of the whole for a concept review presentation for 850 Milwaukee. As you may recall, last summer, 850 Milwaukee, which under Centrum Partners and Larry Powers, came before the Planning and Zoning Commission on a number of different occasions to discuss various uses, including retail, restaurant, and the like. At the final thing that was approved was site landscape improvements for a Northwestern Medical Office building, renovation to take place on the northern end of the building. Subsequent to that, we've had a number of conversations with him in regards to an Uncle Julio's Mexican restaurant that would be coming into the southernmost portion of the building. They'll be going before the board on Tuesday again for a concept presentation, looking at facade improvements, as well as what appears to also include parking variations and a special use for a liquor license.
Good. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, then we have a set of minutes from the February 25th, 2015 meeting in our packet. Any comments on those, or we can move to approve those?
Only comment I have is that the minutes never make note that we closed the public hearing. We always do that.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Okay, so we make that change? Because we did close it. Okay. If there's nothing else, we have a motion to approve that. We need a second, the February 25th meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, we can do that by acclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. If there's nothing else, we have a motion to adjourn. We need a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody adjourned? Or anybody opposed?
I said yes, you said.
Yes, that's right. Okay, we're done. Good night.
That's present. Right, that's right. Here.